Let's see, where are we? Now we go fast forward again. June of 1972, Chemical Bank, one of our lenders, insists we liquidate the technology division in town of officers. I have no objections. That leaves us with Cogar Information Systems and Skyra alone. But we're $20 million in debt, about $60 in cash. But I'm home in the Mohawk Valley. At least I got some friends here. We actually have and are selling in this division a desktop computer now known as a PC. If you saw it outside, I could explain that to you. The first solid-state desktop computer commercially available. We're running our factory on this little thing. Up until then, everybody ran on mainframes with terminals. We have 200 employees. We have no money. We regroup. What are we going to do? Well, George's job is to use his personal credibility, which he had a lot of, to convince our distributors and customers that we would stay a viable customer. Nicholson, Tolles, a fellow by the name of Harry Weiss, and I will deal with creditors. We all do our jobs. The customers, especially Societe Generale, the bank, our major customer in Belgium, stay with us. That intrigues the Singer Company. They must have something. Societe Generale, the bank, if you don't know them, they are Belgium. You can change the name of Belgium. They own the country. I'm serious. Why are they staying with this company? There must be something there. So the Singer Company, a major creditor, via $6.5 million convertible note, takes an equity interest in the company and provides an additional capital of $500,000. The banks, Chemical of New York and United National Bank, convert their debt to preferred stock and warrants. Actually, I thought I was giving them worthless warrants, but it didn't turn out that way. The most difficult creditors to settle with are the unsecured. Now understand something. It was very important we did this without filing bankruptcy proceedings of any type, including Chapter 11. Our corporate attorneys send a young associate down with some books to file Chapter 11 for us. George throws them out. What do we do now? I got to settle with these creditors and I don't have an attorney. Well, I go back. Andy, remember I always liked you in high school? We need help. We have no money. Where were when you had money, Albert? Never mind, he comes along. Most importantly, he reaches into his bag of tricks and gets a fellow by the name of Abe Mentor, a bankruptcy specialist out of Syracuse, who generally deals on the creditor side. And this time it came to the debtor side. Between Andy and Abe Mentor, they take us through this minefield and we do arrange a settlement. By March of 1973, we are solvent. We're solvent. In less than a year, with $20 million in debt, the debt is gone, and we are now solvent. I can't believe it. Neither can Steve Friedman, our SEC attorney. Friedman calls and asks permission to use our reorganization as a case study at Harvard for a course he is teaching. He knows we have effectively reorganized under the bankruptcy laws without going bankrupt. The reorganized company is doing well. First year, September 30, 74, we make $2 million. The albatross down at the technology division is gone. 6 months ending March 30, 75, we make $1,033,000. Annualized sales are about $12 million. In my mind, things are good, very good. I see the present. George, always a visionary, sees things differently. He believes Singer's new product, which he has reviewed, System 11, is obsolete before it is announced. They've got $30 million into this product. Our sales are minuscule compared to Singer Business Machines, and Cogar is concerned we are tied at the hip to Singer Business Machines' fortunes, so complex I don't have time to detail. He believes that they're going to go down and take us with them. They will not make it in this industry. We decide we are best off salvaging shareholders' current value, so in August 1975, Singer buys out, for a lot of reasons, the remaining 20% of Cogar Corporation. We are now a wholly owned subsidiary of the Singer Company. Singer asked George Cogar to take over as president of SBN, and I become vice president and general manager of the Cogar Corporation. July of 1976, as George predicted, Singer decides to get out of the computer business. They have cash flow problems. They are nearing default in their loan agreements with the banks. The problems at the Singer Business Machines operations are draining the company. They decide to divest themselves of that division, and they set up a reserve of $400 million for the expected loss. George's job now is to assist SBM in divesting of its assets and recapture as much as possible from the reserve. By the time he is finished, the write-off is reduced from $400 million to about $200 million, a huge savings to Singer. Takes him three and a half, 4 years, something like that. ICL buys various operations, including the Cogar facility in Schuyler, and eventually expands to Route 12 on the arterial, employs in excess of 700 people. The facility is now a fleet bank facility. There's one problem. Albert Mazloom doesn't have a job. There was a little byline in the paper. ICL buys Cogar. They take all the employees with the exception of Albert Mazloom. I get a phone call of apology from Frank Connors, president of ICL. Albert, I'm sorry. He just called and asked if you were going to come to work for us, and I told him no. You know you're welcome to come here. I know, Frank, it's okay. My bigger problem, I've got a son about 11 years old. He can read. He has a huge problem. Dad, you're not working anymore? Does this mean we can't go to McDonald's? But there is a void. There are certain Singer equipment that ICL does not want to build. They prefer to sell new product. I talked to George about setting up a refurbishment facility for Singer. No, he says, they're getting out of the business. They want no part of it. But why don't you do it for yourself? Okay, George, how about being a partner? No, Albert, you do it. I'll consult for you. I'll help you. I'm not ready to get off of those coattails yet. I decided to start a refurbishment company. As George often said, people are your most important assets. I started out with two of the best. One, a young would-be school teacher who I hired for a 2-week temporary job to help George while he was transitioning offices. After 2 weeks, George advises Albert, keep that girl for as long as she will stay. Early on in our company, she was a one-person workforce, from all administrative details to assembly. And she could drive a forklift. That was 26 years ago, and Pat Callan Wheeler is still here at Trenton Technology. She's here tonight. Pat, I publicly thank you. The other is Bill Raymond, sent to me by some employment agency to help with some warehouse work. He turns out to be a self-educated engineer who, when TRW wanted to charge us $6,000 to upgrade a printer, devised a way to do it in-house for less than $200. I didn't know what he was doing, so I called George to come and look at it. He did. George tells me, Albert, that man is brilliant. Hold on to him. I did. He's still at Trenton Technology. Bill could not be here tonight. We've added many good people over the years, but Pat and Bill were the foundation of the company. Without them, early on, there would be no Trenton Technology. We do very well in the refurbishing business, but that's going to diminish. We know that, so we started a small contract manufacturing operation. But things are about to change. In 1981, I'm approached by two ICL employees to see if I was interested in assisting them in developing an operating system. What do you want from me? They respond, you have a real company, you have offices, and you have equipment, but what we really need is the credibility of a real company to market our product. Then I told them what they wanted to hear. Let me talk to George about this and see what he thinks. They wanted an entree to George from me. They got it. We talked to George. George likes the idea. We started a new company for the development of Deerfield Systems Inc. with George Cogar as a major shareholder. We have a contact at Lanier, Bill Kelly, an ex-Cogar employee who's head of engineering. We became aware that Lanier is looking to replace the current word processor they are selling. Bill arranges a meeting between George Cogar and the president of Lanier, Gene Milner. I go along to the meeting. Then what I hoped would happen, what I knew would happen, happens. The chemistry is instantaneous. George and Gene Milner get along very well together. Milner is so impressed with George, he bets the future of Lanier's word processing division on George and Deerfield. Now, in all fairness, they did have a good product, but it was George who convinces Lanier of the product's capability. This was confirmed in my mind by a letter that Gene Milner wrote to our attorneys in 1985, indicating what he thought of George Cogar. This is for the legal proceedings, which I will later share with you. I want to read just some excerpts from this letter. I consider George R. Cogar one of the most brilliant men I have ever met. Joe Flavin, president of the Singer Corporation, told me George Cogar is truly a genius. He further states, I can assure you that psychologically he brought great confidence to me in authorizing the signing of many multi-million-dollar contracts. While the program was successful, Lanier contracts with Lanier to do maintenance and upgrades. Come May of 1983, George decides to set up operations at his engineering lab in his home with 3 software people, 2 from Deerfield and 1 an ex-employee of Cogar, who's just excellent software man. He wants them to assist him in writing a new operating system. He believes the current operating system at Deerfield is becoming obsolete quickly. There's a new technology. The PC is coming, and he, as always, wants in on the ground floor. In August of 1983, fate steps in once more. George decides to take a fishing and hunting trip to British Columbia, where he owns a hunting lodge with 50,000 acres. We have a long Saturday morning meeting, him and I privately. He's leaving on Sunday. This is a recap of our discussion. In summary, Albert, all of my obligations to Singer, both legal and moral, are complete. I took a year off. I'm coming down from the hill. I'm ready to go back to work. You know I've been working on this new operating system. I know, George. I haven't seen you all summer. With everything that is going on in the computer industry, it will be software that will be the engine that drives the markets. Hardware will be a commodity. What's our financial situation at Deerfield? George, we're very profitable just with the maintenance and upgrades. And don't forget, we've got this royalty coming in, $60 a unit for the first 5,000 units, and it's nearly paid in full. Good. Do you think I have any credibility left? You got credibility with me, Mr. Cogar. Good. I want to start another company. We'll have to figure it all out. You know, you got some good people on there. Deerfield's got some good people. Maybe we put them all together and take them public. Maybe we'll start another one. How about starting a preliminary business plan? And we'll talk about it when I get back. Terrific. He says, we can do what we did at Deerfield 100 times over. My mind, I'm thinking, we got a $3 million royalty. It'd be $300 million. George is thinking differently. George's purpose for doing business was that he looked at a computer as an energy saver. He looked at it as something that would help the quality of life of millions of people. And he really wants to be into it and be into it big time. But I say, okay, George, we'll do it. I'll have it ready when you come back. And I also say, by the way, Mr. Cogar, I've decided to take a month off because I know when you come back, you're going to be the engine, I'm going to be the caboose, you're going to go full throttle, I've been there before. 2 years of 60 to 70-hour weeks. Sunday, George leaves on his trip to British Columbia. Stays in Campbell River for a week salmon fishing. Departs by plane for the hunting lodge. The plane is tracked for 80 miles on radar and disappears. I'm notified George is missing. I immediately call the search master of Canadian Search and Rescue to get details. I tell him, we can't find him? I'll tell you what we'll do. I want to raise a search force of 400 people. We'll get them from there, or I'll send them up from here. We'll place them 50 yards apart and start walking. You know, we're familiar down here with search and rescue. We live at the foothills of the Adirondacks. People get lost all the time. We find them. A very nice and patient search master tells me, Mr. Mazloom, you send me 400 people. I will not send you 40 back. This is not the Adirondacks. He explains the terrain. Okay, let me leave the search master do his work. The search continues. No sign of the lost aircraft. Andy Kowalczyk, Bill Kelly, and I go to British Columbia and visit with the search master. Bill's also a very close friend of George's. Now I see firsthand the problem. 5,000 lakes, pine trees, mountains, glaciers. Pine trees are 300 feet tall. Well, come the first week of October, the government reduces its search to almost nothing. They've been out there for over a month. We hire our own search master to work in conjunction with the search team that the government has out there. We have at any given time 10 helicopters, 20 fixed-wing aircraft in the search, all to no avail. Come mid-November, snow, clouds cover, we shut down the search. George is lost. It's a devastating loss for all of us. First his family, then his friends and business associates, and then our community and beyond. I am sole executor of the George R. Cogar estate and trustee of the George R. Cogar Trust. And I have an obligation as executor to commence the inevitable lawsuit. Andy Kowalczyk starts the research and finds out the largest wrongful death award in Canada at the time is $385,000. There are not punitive damages in Canada. It's just based on your earnings or expected earnings. We decide to commence an action, hope for a settlement. It's going to cost us more than $385,000 to sue in Canada. We know that. But we cannot agree on settlement terms. The decision is made that we will commence an action. Just cannot let them get away with this. The action is commenced. Again, I could write a book on the trial itself. Simplistically stated, in Canada you have two trials. One for liability, one to assess damages. For a liability, we need to prove there was negligence. Our case is built on the fact that the pilot was not instrument certified, he knew bad weather was coming, and should not have taken off. I don't go to the liability trial. Andy handles that portion very successfully. They use some legal principle of reps. You legal people should know it. Help me. Ipso thank you. Reps ipso locator. Andy, you could have told me that. Now for the damages portion of the trial. We now have to prepare for the damages portion of the trial. The trial is before a judge only. But we have a problem. George never took high salaries. His accumulation of current wealth and future wealth potential was based on his entrepreneurial activities, capital gains. We had to prove to the court that George was at this stage the same inventive genius capable of creating capital gain. Remember, there's no punitive damages in Canada. Wrongful death actions are based on expected future earnings only. Let me share with all of you, but in particular the CPAs, what I feel was a turning point of the trial, the Perry Mason moment. As you know, trials are often influenced by expert witness testimony. They have an expert witness, a CPA no less, a CPA from Chicago by the name of Ostermeyer. We are presented with his report, which is effectively his testimony ahead of time. It is absolute nonsense. It reads, George is a has-been. And if it wasn't for Albert Mazloom and his friends who started this Deerfield Systems, he'd be out of a job. We gave him a job, and we were likely to keep him on as long as it was economically feasible, or as long as it suited his interest. I mean, this is outrageous. To me, it is just nonsense. Our attorneys decide to ask the court not to allow his testimony. It is too prejudicial for an expert witness, not based on fact analysis. We go to court. Now, you've got to really see this expert witness to appreciate him. This so-called expert witness comes into court dressed head to toe, all in black, a long black trench coat, neck to ankle, and a 6-inch wide brim black hat, pulling a handcart full of documents, ready to testify. He makes a Hollywood production, taking off his coat, taking off his hat, getting all his documents ready. The judge is there. Their attorney stands up and says to the judge, Your Honor, we have a minor problem with this report, but you allow us if you allow us, to eliminate paragraph 16 to 20, 27 to 32, etc., and we have taken the liberty to do so. The report will be just fine, and I would like to present it to the court and to the plaintiff's counsel. We just realized this last night and just did it. Our attorney's turn. He gets up. The judge says, "Sit down, Mr. Clark." He's our Canadian attorney. "I don't need to hear from you." I'm astonished. Why won't he let our attorney speak? I look quickly towards Annie to see if I can get a signal of what's going on. And I see something. For the first time in this Canadian courtroom, where decorum is very high, you don't laugh and do anything, snicker in a Canadian courtroom, I'll tell you. Andy is trying his best, and I must tell you, unsuccessfully, to hide the smirk on his face. The judge says, "I will not allow this document to be entered as evidence, and I don't want to hear any testimony from this man. Present your next witness." The lawyer says, "We have no witness. We expect him to testify today and tomorrow." The judge says, "Then, well, let's take a 20-minute recess."